No matter who he was talking to, he had a very kind soul and very bright soul.
No one's expected to survive.
The D.C. Fire Chief this morning very succinctly said correctly that we believe there are no survivors.
A plane and helicopter collide over the Potomac River.
This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions.
What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened.
Tonight, Alaska reacts and watches from a place so familiar and reliant on planes.
You're watching Alaska's news source.
We have been told that there are no survivors. We mourn with all those who have been impacted.
We've had literally the most horrifically tragic night that I can remember.
As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us.
Emotional sound about the plane collision in D.C. This is live video of the recovery efforts more than 24 hours after an American Airlines plane and a military helicopter collided near Washington Reagan National Airport and crashed into the Potomac, killing more than 60 people. Our team has been following the latest impacts and brings comprehensive coverage as we look at the effects felt on Alaska.
I feel for the athletes, the skaters, their families, but anyone that was on that plane, not just the skaters, because it's just such a tragic event.
Now, among the dead were several U.S. figure skaters. They were on their way back from a developmental camp in Kansas. 2 teenage figure skaters, along with their mothers, and the 1994 World Pair Champions were also on the flight. Olympic skater Keegan Messing, who lives in Girdwood, joins us during the 5 o'clock news.
And to see the headlines this morning, at first I thought there was only 2 skaters on, but now we're finding out that there's 14 skaters, and the youngest one that I've seen is 9 years old. Like, these kids, they've worked so hard. I mean, gosh, we all have. And, you know, they got the biggest opportunity of their lives to go to the National Development Camp, where they get to go out in front of the national judges and, like, train.
Now, Messing explained how the figure skating community is like family. One of his students even competed against a girl who was on the plane. And the NTSB gave updates today on the fatal crash. John Thompson's here with an update.
That's right, Rebecca. First, let's show you video of the crash. I mean, well, you saw the explosion right there, but you could kind of see the trajectory of that Black Hawk helicopter. And on the flight path right there, explosion, debris falls to the ground. Like you said, the NTSB did hold a briefing today to update the public on that fatal crash. NTSB saying that a preliminary report should be published within 30 days. We can note that 1 black box or flight data recorder has been recovered from the American Airlines flight. The NTSB said an investigative team will be on scene as long as it takes, and all aspects of the crash will be examined.
As part of any investigation, we look at the human, the machine, and the environment. So we will look at all the humans that were involved in this accident. Again, we will look at the aircraft, we will look at the helicopter, we will look at the environment in which they were operating in. That is standard in any part of our investigation.
Now, a final report will be issued once all the fact-finding and investigation is done. There is no indication yet as to when the investigation may be complete. Rebecca?
What I've seen so far, do I think this was preventable? Absolutely.
That was something that should not have happened, and we're not going to let it happen again.
Now, while 2 big aviation situation crashes have happened in the United States this week, in D.C. and Eielson Air Force Base, it is important to remember that major commercial aviation crashes don't happen often in the United States. The last one was 2009.
Can I guarantee the American flying public that the United States has the most safe and secure airspace in the world? And the answer to that is absolutely, yes, we do. We have early indicators of what happened here, and I will tell you with complete confidence, we have the safest airspace in the world.
Lent Johnson with the Alaska NTSB office joins us live to talk about this situation and the level of safety in the United States aviation sector. I know you can't talk about this specific crash, but can you give us any insight into a situation like this and what investigators are looking for?
So thanks for having me tonight, Rebecca. Obviously a dark day in aviation here nationwide, and unfortunately Alaska is not immune to mid-airs like this, obviously not on this scale. 2019 in Ketchikan, we had a mid-air two airplanes came together, multiple fatalities, and then in 2020, July of 2020 in Soldotna. So what came out of those investigations were recommendations, and that's exactly what we're going to see here. Once we finish this investigation in Washington, D.C., I can almost guarantee that there will be recommendations to keep an accident like this from happening again.
And of course, this is one of the most deadly plane crashes the country has had in a very long time. What safety has been in place over these past few years to ensure that flying is safe?
So, yeah, good question. I mean, obviously, technology has expanded and advanced immensely since in the last probably 20 years, even 10 years. ADS-B, which basically allows airplanes to talk back and forth as far as their location, also gives situational awareness to the flight crews, and also ATC. TCAS, which is collision avoidance. Obviously, something went horribly wrong here, and our job is to find out exactly what went wrong and make recommendations to keep it from happening again. And I'm confident that our team in Washington, D.C. will do just that.
And already we're seeing people kind of play Monday night quarterback of whose fault it is. Is it way too early in this process to point blame at anybody?
You know, I've been doing this a long time, and I've learned from my mistakes. We always want to wait till we have all the facts before we say anything. And that's what a lot of times why we're so guarded. Again, I've eaten crow myself. So again, just in the past, what I would ask is everybody just take a breath, let us do our job, and our signature trademark is to deliver very comprehensive, detailed investigations, and that's exactly what we're going to do here.
And how likely is it for a plane or a helicopter to collide in the air?
Well, mid-airs are touchy. They're complicated. You would think that they're pretty easy, but they are very complicated from an investigative standpoint. We need to know how these airplanes came together, how each one of these flight crew were able to actually see, if they were able to see each other. Was there a doorpost in the way? Was there some kind of obstruction? That's first and foremost. So, mid-airs are not common, but they're not uncommon as well. I know that sounds a little funny, but there's a lot of technology out there to keep these accidents from happening again. But again, we are going to look into this one very, very closely and figure out exactly what went wrong.
And we used to talk a little bit in the 5 o'clock newscast about the similarities between DCA and Alaska. What are those again?
So Anchorage here, obviously, there's a large number of air traffic in the area. We have Merrill Field, we have Anchorage International, we have Birchwood, Bryant, and Elmendorf, and a number of private airstrips in the area. So the point is there's a number of airplanes that are operating in a very confined area. Luckily, we've been fairly lucky here as far as mid-airs recently in the Anchorage area. But again, ADS-B is being used here, so that's one of those technology things that I mentioned before that is definitely, I think, helping out as far as mid-air avoidance.
Thank you so much for your insight tonight. Well, today people are still traveling. Georgina Fernandez joins us now live at Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. She's talking with passengers.
Rebecca, we've been here at the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport all day talking to over 24 passengers and how they're feeling following yesterday's deadly crash. Now, many of those passengers we spoke with today tell us they were unaware that a crash had happened last night in D.C. Meanwhile, a few nervous flyers told us they're avoiding thinking about the crash and didn't want to talk about it. But the majority of over 24 people we talked with said they felt good to fly today, as others say they're trying to focus on getting to their final destination. Some telling us, though, that journey to their final destination felt different today.
I try not to think about that. I just try to focus on, getting to where I'm going, and then watch whatever movies that's on, what's available on the plane. But you try not to think about it as much, because if you do think about it too much, then you're gonna drive yourself crazy, and you're never gonna want to fly.
And it did feel a little bit different. You know, it's in the back of your mind. You try not to let it affect what you're thinking, but it still does.
Now, American Airlines has no flights departing right now from ANC. The airport tells us that the airline has a seasonal route here in Alaska that operates in the summertime. Rebecca?
And turning to weather, winter conditions are back, and for some that means dangerous cold, others heavy snow. Chief Meteorologist Melissa Fry joins us now with the news alerts that you need to know.
Yeah, Rebecca, such a contrast to what we've experienced really most of this winter. In fact, today, the coldest day that we have seen since last year, since last in February. And we do have a number of warnings in place across the state, everything from blizzard warnings out west to extreme cold warnings for the western side of the state, also in parts of southeast, and then extreme cold advisories in effect for much of south central as well. And that's really due to the wind contributing to a very dangerous wind chill value. You get to those higher elevations through the passes. That's where we're seeing wind chill values below 40 below. That's also the case in Unalakleet and Galena. Dead Horse right now seeing a wind chill of 55 below. So in those areas, you can get frostbite in less than 10 minutes with exposed skin. So really important to make sure that you have the proper layers and gear if you're headed out and about. Otherwise, a lot of clear skies, a lot of beautiful sunshine, with the exception of southeast and southwest. That's where we are seeing snow, and more of that is on the way. I'll have a closer look at that full extended forecast, what you can expect heading into the weekend here in just a few minutes.
Still ahead, a big race is just days away. Coming up, we check on the Quest.
It's a chance to be face-to-face with the Mushers. The Yukon Quest Alaska meet and greet underway. We'll have more details coming up after the break.
Quest Alaska is days away. Sports director Jordan Rodenberger live in Fairbanks with what to expect this weekend.
Yeah, and this is one of the last things Mushers have to do before pawing that starting line in Fairbanks. The meet and greet and the bib draw happening right here at the Civic Center on Pioneer Park grounds in Fairbanks, Alaska, as we'll have 3 different races on Saturday featuring 27 total Mushers. We got an 80-miler, a 200-miler, and a 550-mile trek through some of Alaska's toughest terrain. Now feature 8 different Mushers, including a couple of Mackeys. We got Jason Mackey and his son Patrick in this race. We also got a couple Iditarod veterans, Josie Shelley, the 2024 Iditarod Rookie of the Year, and Laurel Eklund, who represents these lands, as we'll have more details on this upcoming race here in a few broadcasts in the late edition.
Thanks for listening. Click subscribe so you can get the latest podcast from Alaska's news source automatically. And stay up to date with breaking news and in-depth reporting available for free 24/7 with the Alaska's news source app.